think we got him. I think George is out of the elevator. I think George is absolutely ready to rock right here on Willard and Dibs, NBC Sports Bay Area. Former Giant reliever, of course, George Kontos. Elevator to where? Are you moving on up?
Well, moving on up to my home, my condo where I live.
Fancy.
Nice.
Fancy. Very good. I bet you were able to kick your feet up on the couch there this weekend and enjoy some Giants baseball. What did you see the last 4 days that maybe is or is not different than what was happening before?
Well, I think you've finally gotten that youth movement surge and spark that you've been wanting for. You've been waiting for. It's unfortunate that the Giants have so many guys in there that were on their opening day roster and that would probably be in the lineup right now if they weren't hurt. But the fact that these young kids, I mean, you can't really say enough about the week that Luis Matos has had. I mean, he's just tearing the cover off the ball. He he made a couple routes in center field that we would have liked to have seen him do better, but overall he rectified those as the series went on against Colorado. And the way that he's swinging the bat, along with him and Heliot Ramos, is really, really nice to see.
Is the fact that he's probably going to be in center field now with Jung-Hoo Lee out for the year, does that give him a little bit more of an ability to take a deep breath and kind of settle into not pressing so much?
I think that 100% plays into it. I mean, you've heard Bob Melvin say it. You've heard Farhan say it. They've given him that vote of confidence that, hey, you're our everyday center fielder going forward. This is your job now. Take it and run with it. I mean, we know that Jung-Hoo is out for the season, obviously, with that shoulder the surgery for the end of his season. But it's one of those things where the next guy up is going to have to come up and be productive, and Luis Matos has done just that.
George Kontos with us on Willard and Dibs. George, the youth movement you mentioned, did they wait too long?
No, I don't think they waited too long. A lot of times it just takes things to click a little bit, right? We've known about these guys for a very long time. We've seen glimpses of them. And I said it on the pre and post game as it was happening just during the Rockies series, is sometimes you have some things that happen, events or games or something that just clicks and your confidence makes you feel like you belong in the big leagues. And I think that these guys are starting to really believe, like, hey, I can play at this level consistently. I don't need to be fearful that, hey, I'm going to get optioned, or if I have a couple games where I don't get a hit, I might be sent out of here. They're playing with that confidence, like they know they belong. And when you get to that mental state of being, it allows you to be dangerous and play at the level that you can play at.
What do you make of Marco Luciano in a small sample so far defensively at shortstop, getting comfortable over there?
I mean, we've always known that he has a really good glove. I mean, he's super athletic. Some of the plays that he made up behind second base, up the middle, have been really, really good. He's really athletic. I thought that his first few at-bats, he looked maybe a little bit overmatched when he first got called up, but then he started to settle in. He got his first hit, drove in a run, got a double, and then he started to look a lot more comfortable and a lot more like himself. And with Nick Ahmed being on the IL right now and still kind of making his way back, he's the guy that's going to have to be there playing shortstop. So he's going to get the brunt of the work, and he needs to continue doing what he's been doing.
All right, George, let's talk about that. You just mentioned Ahmed still being on the IL. This is true for Austin Slater as well. In your opinion, how do the Giants play this? Luciano and Ramos are still playing well. Ahmed and Slater are ready. What do you do?
Well, I'm glad that I don't have to make those decisions because, they're going to have obviously some head scratching to do once everyone is ready, and they're going to have to make some roster moves. But, if I'm, from what I've seen recently, unless something really falls and falters, I'm keeping Heliot Ramos in that lineup. I really like his swings. I really like his attitude. We had him in a post-game interview over the weekend, and he just said that he's finally in a really good place where he's not trying to do too much, and he's just letting the game come to him, letting the pitcher and the pitches come to him. And I really like what I've been seeing. So again, I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make those decisions because I really like all the guys. It's just for me, it would be hard to take a very useful and productive bat out of the lineup.
Similarly, at catcher, we may have a situation. Kurt Casale's come in and been fantastic, and when Bailey comes back, maybe that doesn't prompt it, but eventually Murphy's going to come off the injured list. What do you think about Kurt Casale and what he's done since coming back to the Giants?
Well, you can't really. I mean, you saw what kind of spark, like the culturally, that Kurt Casale coming back brought. I mean, everyone in that clubhouse and everyone in the organization very much likes Kurt Casale a lot. and he is a veteran guy. He knows how to calm these younger pitchers down. I would imagine for the foreseeable future, he'll probably do the majority of the catching of Webb and Harrison and Jordan Hicks until Patrick Bailey is cleared to go from his concussion symptoms. But, I mean, you went out and got him, and you went out and took him from the Cubs AAA and brought him to the big leagues, and he's a guy who's been there before and has done it for the Giants at a high level. And I think that what he brings to the team, not only from a defensive standpoint, the bat has always kind of, been the secondary approach to him as opposed to the glove and calling the game and being a productive veteran behind the plate. But if he's doing it okay with the bat, which he seems to be swinging it all right, he brings a few different facets that are just great for what the Giants want long term for foreseeable future and the rest of the season.
George Kontos, former Giant, NBC Sports Bay Area, with us, Willard and Dibs, 95.7 The Game. George, I'd really love to pick your brain here because I know you former players. You're all kind of dialed in and talking to each other, and you hear the buzz on the inside. Last year, at the end of the year, Farhan Zaidi made it clear that it was time to at least give Marco Luciano a shot to start the year at shortstop. And then quietly, they didn't. And I still don't know why. What is it that the organization is hesitant about?
Well, I mean, the only thing that I can think of is they did not have him in the starting shortstop role to begin the season because they probably felt that he needed a little bit more seasoning and he wasn't ready to take the grind and be the everyday shortstop, which is okay. He's still a very young player. The defense is there. I think that you really want to see him progress a little bit more with the bat. Before getting called up in AAA, it wasn't like he was exactly tearing the cover off the ball, and he was here out of necessity. And so far, he's done a really good job. And I think that we need to take those positives when they come and let him run with them. And if he proves that he can handle it with the stick, I mean, defensively, he'll be fine. He's still young. He'll make his growing pain mistakes. But if he can overall handle the workload of being the everyday shortstop, I don't think that Farhan or the front office would hesitate to have him in that shortstop role every day if they thought that he was ready for that challenge.
Should we take this weekend with a grain of salt, George, knowing that Colorado is absolutely terrible?
Well, look, I mean, there's two ways of looking at it, right? Colorado's absolutely terrible, but they were also the hottest team in baseball after winning 7 straight. So you can look at it on kind of both ends of that coin. I wouldn't necessarily just start thinking that the Giants are going to be scoring 8 runs a game because that would be a huge anticipation that might not be lived up to because we've seen kind of what the progress has been with the offense. But I think it was a great start where you got to sweep a team at home before going on the road, and you're going to have some thunder throwers in Jones and Skeens that you're going to be facing in Pittsburgh the next few days. So I think that you got to look at it as a positive, but I wouldn't just necessarily think that the Giants offense, I mean, you're not going to be getting 16 RBIs in a week from Matos every single week. Otherwise, you have like the best player ever. But you definitely have made some great strides, and I think that the confidence of the ball club is very high right now going into Pittsburgh, as it should be.
Well, you're not going to get it with that attitude, George. But geez, well, George, what about this? Tell me the process of how the league handles it when young players come up. Sure, Matos been, he was up for half the year last year. But I'm curious, when a guy comes up and pops, kind of like Casey Schmidt did last year, how long before a scouting report sort of gets around the league and people change what they're doing? In other words, what are Luciano and Ramos about to face on this road trip?
Well, I mean, when you win National League Player of the Week honors, it goes noticed very, very quickly. And, he did a great job of hitting mistake pitches, which is what you have to do in the big leagues. You have to capitalize when pitchers make mistakes. I mean, he launched that 3-run homer the other day, and it was a mistake pitch. I mean, he went down and got a few changeups in 1-2 counts and pulled them over the third baseman for doubles. He's doing exactly what you should be when the pitcher makes a mistake. And now what's going to end up happening is these guys are going to be a little bit more careful when he's up at the plate. They're not just going to give him those, good cookie fastballs down and away. They're going to make sure that they locate those pitches. He's going to get breaking balls behind in the count to see how aggressive he is. And if he can just stay within his approach, and he's got really fast hands, he's got great power to up the middle and to right field. I think and that goes for Matos and Ramos. Those guys are both in that same category. If they can just take a deep breath and keep the game slow. Let the pitch and that bat develop the way that it's supposed to, and not get overly excited, because that's when you put the pressure on yourself and you make some mistakes. If they just continue to take what the pitchers are giving them, try and lay off those good breaking ball pitches and pitches that are well executed, or put good swings on them, fight them off for good at bats, and that confidence will still be there, and they'll still be playing with the conviction that they are.
Jordan Hicks got a big contract, and he has more than lived up to billing. Yesterday, he's vomiting before first pitch and guts it out and comes out and has another good outing. Beyond yesterday, George, just how impressed are you by what Jordan Hicks has been able to do?
It's been very impressive. I mean, look, he's only given up 3 earned runs in a start once, and it was in Colorado against the Rockies. Everything else has been 2 or less in all 10 of his starts. So the fact that he's been able to go from a super power pitcher that could throw every fastball, 101, 102, 103, to a guy that sits 94, 95 and can throttle when he needs it, or when he's empty in the tank later on in his outings, when he feels like it might be the end of his outing, when he can get back to 98, 99 triple digits, and then he's mixed in that splitter and that good little breaking ball, and he's thrown them a ton more. I mean, his splitter usage last year was only 1%, and this year he's throwing at 24%. So you're protecting everything else with that sinker, because guys know that everything is going to be breaking down out of his hand, and it's going to be 94 with sink, it's going to be 88 with the splitter, or it's going to be 82, 83 with the breaking ball. But he still has that up velocity at 97, 98 to catch you sleeping at the top of the zone. So his transition from a reliever full-time to a starter, I think, has gone about as well as you could have ever imagined. The only issue I think that we might run into at the end of the year is his career innings. Don't forget, he's only thrown 78 innings in a season, for the most ever. I would have a hard time imagining him getting much past 145, 150 if he got there. And he even mentioned it in his post-game start, already being at the innings that he is. He's noticing his legs are getting a little bit heavier, and that's just because he's not used to this workload. And he said that the most important part right now is protecting his shoulder. So it's not necessarily that his body can't handle it, it's just the volume of innings he's never experienced before. So it's just going to be something to keep an eye on as the season progresses. George,
we're having Sergio Romo on in 15 minutes. Now, I mean this as a compliment, but he's a complete crazy maniac, right?
Romy's the best. You guys know Romy. He's just got the biggest heart. He's a goofball, and he's the greatest.
Right, but when people go, oh, big heart, goofball, you think of like he's a nice guy. No, he's someone who throws like an 89-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle to Miguel Cabrera in the World Series. Like, he's a crazy person.
Well, you know what? There's no lack of cojones in that man. He was a guy who has always pitched like he was 6'5" and threw 100, and he is 5'10", 5'11", and threw 88, 89 with his bastard slider. But he's done such a great job in his career, and when he touched the mound, obviously, as you guys all know and remember, he was pitching with a lot of pride, and that 89 definitely played up.
George, great to have you, man. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, there it is. That's George Kontos with us here, NBC Sports Bay Area, former Giants reliever and teammate of our next guest who's joining us in about 10 or 15 minutes.
It's